Genesis 44, let's call this a sacrifice. Why? Because we have already seen ways in which Jacob and Esau were able to find peace using a number of different factors. We've already talked about time, but not just time. Time used wisely, meaning they were both productive in their separation from one another. The distance between them also helped. And we've seen in differing relationships how different distances were necessary based upon the level of division or animosity between the differing factions, I guess we could call it. In addition to time and distance, we saw how candor was necessary. As the Bible talks about, confess your faults to one another. People who were once hiding behind a veil of innocence came clean and said, look, I want peace enough to confess that what I did was wrong. And then beyond that, restitution, putting something on that. If you cost someone something, having a heart to make them whole is not only a part of these stories from Genesis, but we've talked about how it's a part of what will become the law of the nation of Israel. And all of those things, at least in some part, are going to go into the healing that we see drawing closer and closer in this interaction between Joseph and his brothers. Understanding in the last chapter, Joseph tested them yet again by inviting them or having them over to his house for dinner, feeding them from his own table, but piling 5 times the portions on Benjamin's plate. Apparently observing how those boys would react, understanding that previously them simply seeing that their father liked him more and gave him a coat was enough for them to want to kill him. And so now he wants to see how they're going to treat his little brother. And he might be impressed to see that they actually celebrated with him as he gets more portioned on his plate. And now he's going to take it a step further. At this point, a lot of folks, me, I'd be like, oh, let's just make peace. But Joseph's a wise man, an extremely wise man. He has another test on deck for him, and that's what we see here in chapter 44. When he hides or has one of his servants hide one of his own personal items in the baggage of his brothers. And if you had to guess which brother whose bag he'd picked to hide it in, who would you guess? Well, I guessed wrong. I didn't guess at all. But when I read the story, I would have been expecting it to be someone other than Benjamin, his own biological brother by the same mother, the one who had nothing to do with selling him into slavery. That's whose bag he hides his own personal stuff in, as he drags the boys back into his house to accuse them of stealing the coat he had hidden on them. And so what he's actually doing is, it seems, testing how deep their commitment to Benjamin goes, because he's giving them an out. If they really don't like him, like we have friends, sometimes we have friends who are willing to celebrate with us in good times, but their affection for us doesn't go very deep. If their affection for Benjamin doesn't go very deep, they have an out. They can just leave him in the custody of the one who they don't know is Joseph. But right now, he just appears to be the mean man in Egypt. And faced with that option, not knowing whether or not he's actually guilty, one of the brothers steps up and offers himself as a sacrifice. Judah's going to step up and say, we can't let Benjamin stay that way, because our father's life is tied up in the life of the boy. And if I have to stay in his place, let me stay. Once again, Judah not necessarily knowing whether or not Benjamin is guilty is putting Benjamin and his father's needs before his own. And it's impressive because we've also seen Simeon step up in a similar way, saying, if I don't bring Benjamin back, you can kill my 2 sons. And that's an incredible thing to say. But what we're starting to see now are boys who are not only able to celebrate with a brother who's prospering more than they are, they're able to come to a point where they realize maybe they've done enough wrong in their life that they're willing to sacrifice their life to make it right. And so at this point, if there's any lesson that we can take from it, we're looking at people who have not only used time wisely, they've used distance, they've used candor, and they've used restitution, meaning money out of pocket, to help make peace. But they're also willing at this point, at least 2 of them are willing to sacrifice their own lives if it can bring reconciliation to this family.